High Admiral Christak stood at the observation deck of the 7th Fang Fleet flagship, his massive frame silhouetted against the backdrop of stars. 6 arms crossed over his armored chest, each limb rippling with musculature evolved through millennia of survival on Sivar Prime, the most lethal death world in the known galaxy. His primary eyes focused on the holographic display, while his secondary set remained vigilant of his surroundings, a survival instinct hardwired into every Kryvak. Anomaly XC45902 remains unexplained, High Admiral, reported Travak, his executive officer. Unlike Christak, who stood nearly 3 meters tall, Travak was considered small for a Kryvak at only 2.5 meters, what he lacked in stature. He made up for in tactical brilliance. Christak's secondary mouth, evolved for processing tough vegetation during resource scarcity, clicked thoughtfully. Display the full sensor array. The hologram expanded, showing a small blue-green planet in an unremarkable solar system at the edge of the Orion Spur. By all appearances, it was a garden world, Class 3 at most on the Deathworld scale. Initial scans classified it as a low-threat environment. Travak explained. Moderate gravity, breathable atmosphere, manageable temperatures, diverse but mostly non-lethal flora and fauna. Then explain these, Christak demanded, gesturing with one of his lower arms toward the artificial signal readings. These energy signatures suggest advanced technology. How could a species from such a benign environment develop interstellar capabilities? A small, 6-legged creature scuttled onto the command platform. This was Pip, a Vulrix analyst integrated into the Kryvak hierarchy after their species assessment and subsequent placement as a tributary race. The fox-sized being projected data from its neural interface. The readings are consistent, High Admiral. Despite the planet's classification, these beings have achieved technological sophistication comparable to mid-tier council species. Their communications are extensive. Their energy utilization patterns suggest industrial capacities beyond what we'd expect for their planetary classification. Christak's primary mouth formed into what passed for a Kryvak frown. This violated every principle of evolutionary hierarchy that formed the foundation of galactic civilization. The harshest worlds produced the strongest species. This was immutable law, the basis for the Kryvak's position at the apex of the Galactic Council. Species from easier environments simply didn't have the biological imperative to develop such capabilities. Amend our course, Christak declared after a moment of contemplation. We will assess this anomaly personally. Travak's posture shifted slightly, the Kryvak equivalent of raising an eyebrow. The Council expected us to continue to the Andromeda tributary inspection. The Council entrusted me with maintaining the order of species, Christak replied firmly. This anomaly represents a potential challenge to that order. I will not delegate such a responsibility. As the massive engines of the 7th Fang Fleet redirected toward Earth, Christak reflected on the weight of his position. For 12 generations, the Kryvak had stood as the undisputed masters of known space. Their biology evolved through survival on a planet where the atmosphere itself contained corrosive elements, where predators larger than transport vehicles stalked the surface, where tectonic instability caused daily geographic rearrangement had made them the perfect galactic administrators. Lesser species were assessed, categorized, and assigned their proper place in the hierarchy. Some, like the Vulrix, served directly. Others provided resources, knowledge, or territory. The system worked because it followed natural law. The strong commanded, the weak contributed according to their capabilities. Now, this anomaly threatened that perfect order. If a species from a garden world could achieve such development without the crucible of a death world environment, what did that imply about the Kryvak's fundamental assumptions? Christak would not allow such questions to remain unanswered. 3 weeks later, the first signs of human detection appeared. Primitive satellites on the edge of the solar system registered the Kryvak fleet's approach. Interestingly, there was no immediate panic in the transmissions that Pip's team intercepted. Instead, There seemed to be excitement. They've organized a welcoming committee, Travak reported with disbelief. Their governing body, something called the United Earth Council, has arranged for diplomatic representatives to meet us when we enter orbit. They assume we come in peace? Christak asked, genuinely puzzled. They make no assumptions either way, Pip interjected, analyzing the transmissions. But they express curiosity and a desire for mutual understanding. They've designated a landing zone and provided atmospheric entry parameters. Before Christak could respond, a direct transmission reached the flagship. The holographic projector activated, and a small, fragile-looking being appeared. It had only 2 arms, 2 eyes, and no apparent natural armor. Its skin looked soft, vulnerable, and its limbs lacked the proper musculature for a sentient species. "Greetings to the approaching vessels," the being said in a clear, measured voice. "I am Secretary General Amara Rodriguez of the United Earth Council. We have detected your fleet and welcome you to Sol System. We request peaceful contact and offer our facilities in New Geneva for diplomatic exchange. We are transmitting navigational coordinates and atmospheric specifications. We look forward to meeting you." The transmission ended, leaving the command deck in stunned silence. "They didn't even ask our intentions," Travak finally said. "Either supreme confidence or supreme naivety," Christak mused. "Perhaps both. Prepare the assessment team. I will lead this first contact personally." The landing at the designated coordinates proceeded without incident. The humans had cleared a massive area outside a city they called New Geneva, where a temporary structure had been erected specifically for this meeting. Christak selected a team of 20 elite Kryvak warriors and Pip for analytical support. When the Kryvak delegation emerged from their shuttle, there was an audible gasp from the assembled humans. Christak understood their reaction. Kryvak physiology was imposing by any standard. Their chitinous exoskeletal armor, multiple limbs, dual-set jaws, and towering height would intimidate any species. Yet the humans recovered quickly. A diverse group stepped forward, led by the same woman from the transmission. Secretary General Rodriguez stood barely to Christak's mid-torso, but she showed no fear as she made the formal human greeting gesture. "High Admiral Christak of Kuvar Prime, we welcome you to Earth. I present our delegation, Military Attaché General Okonkwo, Science Advisor Dr. Hitomi Tanaka, and Cultural Representative Mateo Diaz." Christak performed the formal Kryvak greeting, careful to retract his barbed appendages to avoid alarming the fragile beings. "We accept your welcome. I present Executive Officer Travak and Analyst Pip of the Vulrics." The human reaction to Pip was unexpected. Several made sounds that Christak's translator identified as expressions of endearment. The Vulrics' proportionally large eyes and fur apparently triggered some protective instinct in humans. "We have prepared the facilities for discussion," Rodriguez continued. "But first, may I ask the purpose of your visit to our system? We're quite isolated from the galactic mainstream, as you may have noticed." "Assessment," Christak stated simply. When the humans looked confused, he elaborated. "All species are evaluated to determine their proper place in the galactic hierarchy. Your technological advancement from such a benign environment is anomalous. The Kryvak, as administrators of galactic order, must determine your appropriate classification." There was a subtle shift in the human's posture. The military attaché, Okonkwo, spoke for the first time. "With respect, High Admiral, we don't recognize any authority to classify us. We welcome cultural exchange and peaceful relations, but Earth is sovereign territory." Christak's secondary eyes blinked in confusion. No species had ever rejected assessment so directly. "You misunderstand. Assessment is not a choice. It is natural law. The strong establish order. Others find their place within it." Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, her expression thoughtful. I believe we're encountering a fundamental philosophical difference. Admiral, would you be willing to observe our civilization before making any determinations? We'd be happy to show you humanity's achievements and capabilities. Christock considered this. It was unconventional, but perhaps these humans simply didn't understand the inevitability of natural hierarchy. Very well. We will observe before assessment. What followed was 3 days of increasingly baffling experiences for the Kryvak delegation. The humans took them to various locations around their planet, each more confounding than the last. They visited a hospital where humans deliberately exposed themselves to pathogens to develop medical treatments. They toured universities where knowledge was freely shared regardless of status. They observed democratic elections where leadership was determined by group decision rather than proven strength. But nothing prepared Christock for what the humans called extreme sports. You're saying, Travak clarified as they watched humans hurling themselves off cliffs with only thin fabric wings, that they do this for entertainment? Absolutely, Mateo Diaz confirmed cheerfully. Base jumping, free climbing, ultra-marathons through deserts, humans love to test their limits. Pip's analytical apparatus was working overtime. This behavior contradicts survival optimization. They risk death without necessity. That's where you're wrong, Dr. Tanaka interjected. These activities serve important psychological and social functions. They allow for mastery experiences, status achievement, and community building. Humans evolved to seek challenges, not just avoid threats. Later that evening, in the privacy of their diplomatic quarters, Travak voiced concerns. High Admiral, I believe we may be miscalculating these humans. Their approach to survival and advancement differs fundamentally from our own. Christock's mandibles clicked irritably. They are soft creatures from a soft world. Their achievements must have some explanation that aligns with natural law. My analysis suggests otherwise, Pip ventured cautiously. Humans appear to have evolved not for individual survival optimization, but for group adaptation through tool use and environmental manipulation. Their physical weakness may have driven their technological advancement. Impossible. Christock dismissed. Tomorrow we begin formal assessment. The trials will reveal the truth of their capabilities. The assessment area had been prepared according to Kryvak specifications. 5 challenges would test the fundamental qualities of species worthiness: strength, endurance, combat, problem-solving, and environmental adaptation. A crowd of human observers had gathered, kept at a safe distance. Christock noticed that rather than showing appropriate deference or fear, they seemed to be treating the assessment as entertainment, another of their sports. The first trial is strength, Christock announced. A representative must move these stone blocks from one end of the field to the other. The blocks, each weighing approximately 1,000 kilograms, would be challenging even for a Kryvak, for the fragile humans. Christock expected failure, or at least struggle. Instead, General Okonkwo smiled. We accept. Our representative will be Technician Liu. A small human female stepped forward, appearing even less physically imposing than most of her kind. Christock's secondary mouth made the Kryvak equivalent of a dismissive snort. Technician Liu, however, walked to a nearby vehicle, activated it, and drove it onto the field. The machine, identified as a forklift by Pip's database, effortlessly lifted and transported the blocks in less than half the time it would have taken a Kryvak warrior. What is this? Christock demanded. The trial tests physical strength, not machine operation. Secretary Rodriguez looked genuinely confused. You didn't specify that tools were prohibited. Humans use technology to multiply our physical capabilities. That is our strength. Before Christock could protest further, Dr. Tanaka added, furthermore, the ability to create and operate such tools is itself a form of strength. Liu designed improvements to this forklift's hydraulic system herself. The second trial, endurance, proved equally frustrating. Rather than having a single human attempt to outlast a Kryvak in a test of physical stamina, the humans used a relay team, with fresh members replacing tired ones at regular intervals. "This violates the spirit of the test," Travak protested. "On the contrary," Mateo Diaz countered, "human endurance has always been collective. Our ancestors pursued prey through persistence hunting, taking turns to track animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. Our endurance comes from cooperation, not individual capacity." The combat trial was perhaps the most shocking. When faced with simulated predators from Sci-Fi Prime, the humans didn't engage directly as Kryvak warriors would. Instead, they used ranged weapons, environmental traps, and coordinated tactics to neutralize threats from safe distances. "Where is the honor in this?" Christak demanded. "Where is the direct confrontation that proves worth?" "With respect, Admiral," General Okonkwo replied calmly. "Survival doesn't care about honor. Throughout our history, humans who insisted on fair fights with predators or enemies simply died. We fight to win, not to satisfy arbitrary rules of engagement." The problem-solving trial involved navigating a complex maze while solving sequential puzzles. Here, the humans employed not just one approach, but multiple parallel attempts, communicating findings between teams and building on each discovery. "They're collaborating," Pip observed with fascination, "treating failure as shared data rather than individual inadequacy." The final trial, environmental adaptation, was meant to be Christak's trump card. Participants were subjected to rapidly changing conditions mimicking Sci-Fi Prime's hostile environment. But again, the humans surprised him, rather than relying on innate biological resistance as a Kryvak would. They employed protective gear, environmental monitoring tools, and predictive algorithms to anticipate changes before they occurred. "You wouldn't survive 5 minutes on our world without your technology," Christak stated, frustration evident in his dual voice. "Perhaps not," Secretary Rodriguez acknowledged. "But with it, we could not only survive but thrive. That's the human approach to adaptation. We don't wait for evolution to give us the tools, we build them ourselves." Back aboard the flagship, Christak paced the command deck, his massive form radiating tension. The assessment had undermined everything he believed about species hierarchy. These humans, with their soft bodies and gentle homeworld, had effectively matched or exceeded Kryvak capabilities through entirely unexpected means. "The Council will expect our report and recommendation," Travak reminded him. "What place do these humans occupy in the natural order?" Christak stopped pacing, his 4 eyes focusing on the image of Earth rotating in the holographic display. "I don't know," he admitted, the words feeling like acid in his primary mouth. "They don't fit our understanding of strength or adaptation. They don't conform to the Deathworld gradient that has ordered galactic civilization for millennia." "If I may," Pip interjected, neural interface flickering with activity. "Perhaps our understanding of strength has been too narrow. The humans don't survive despite their physical limitations. They thrive because of them." "Explain," Christak demanded. "Their comparative weakness drove them to develop tools, cooperation, and environmental manipulation. While Kryvak evolved thicker armor and stronger limbs, humans evolved problem-solving and social cohesion. Different adaptations to different selection pressures, but potentially equal in ultimate effectiveness." Travak's posture indicated deep thought. "If true, this challenges the entire basis of the Council's species hierarchy." "Yes," Christak said slowly. "It does." 2 months later, Christak stood before the Grand Council on Kavar Prime, the assembled representatives of 27 tributary species watching intently. His formal report on humanity had caused unprecedented controversy. "You recommend alliance rather than tributary status?" The council elders' disbelief resonated through the chamber. "For a species from a Class 3 world?" "I do," Christak confirmed, standing firm despite the murmurs of dissent. Humanity possesses capabilities that complement our own. Their approach to survival and advancement differs from ours but achieves comparable results. This violates every principle of natural hierarchy, objected Council War Master Krivosh. Next, you'll suggest the Trivacs deserve voting rights. The chamber erupted in Krivak laughter, a harsh, clicking sound intimidating to lesser species. Christak waited for silence before continuing. I have transmitted complete data on human achievements and methodology. They have independently developed technologies that took Krivak centuries longer to discover. Their medical sciences exceed our own. Their adaptive capacity through tool use effectively compensates for their biological limitations. And what do these humans offer that we cannot simply take? Asked another council member. Innovation, Christak replied simply. Their evolutionary path prioritized creative problem-solving over biological adaptation. In 3 standard months observing them, I witnessed technological improvements that would take us decades to develop independently. He activated a holographic display showing human achievements in various fields. Furthermore, humans exhibit a trait rare among apex species, genuine curiosity about others. They seek to understand rather than dominate. This characteristic makes them ideal partners for knowledge exchange. The debate lasted for days. Traditionalists insisted on maintaining the evolutionary hierarchy that had served the Krivak for generations. Progressives, seeing advantage in human innovation, supported Christak's recommendation. In the end, pragmatism prevailed over tradition. The Council voted, narrowly, to offer humanity alliance status rather than tributary classification. 6 months after first contact, Christak stood beside Secretary General Rodriguez as they signed the Terran Krivak Concord in the same New Geneva facility where they had first met. The agreement established mutual defense, technological exchange, and cultural cooperation between Earth and Kavar Prime. A historic day, Rodriguez remarked as holo cameras recorded the ceremony. The beginning of a partnership that will benefit both our peoples. Indeed, Christak agreed, his perspective forever altered by his encounter with humanity. Though I must confess, when we first detected your world, I expected to find a primitive species requiring guidance and protection. Rodriguez smiled. And we expected either hostile invaders or benevolent space brothers. We were both wrong in enlightening ways. There is wisdom in being wrong, Christak said, echoing a human phrase he had come to appreciate. It creates opportunity for new understanding. As the ceremony concluded, Christak observed the mingling of human and Krivak representatives. Already, joint research initiatives were being established. Krivak biologists working with human medical scientists, human engineers collaborating with Krivak materials specialists. Pip approached, now wearing a specially designed communication interface created by human technicians that had doubled the Volrix's analytical capabilities. High Admiral, preliminary results from the joint xenobiology program are exceeding projections. Human genetic engineering techniques applied to Krivak regenerative capabilities have produced promising treatment protocols. And the Volrix? Christak inquired, noting how the small analyst had flourished under human interaction. Our status reclassification proposal will be presented to the Council next month. The humans have provided compelling data supporting greater Volrix autonomy within the hierarchy. Christak nodded, unsurprised. The humans had immediately questioned the tributary status of species like the Volrix, applying their strange notions of rights and self-determination to galactic politics. Travak joined them, having just concluded discussions with General Okonkwo about joint security protocols. The first human delegation will arrive on Kavar Prime within the year, he reported. Their environmental adaptation team has already designed habitation modules that can withstand our atmosphere. And our delegation here? Christak asked. Adjusting well. The humans have been remarkably accommodating to our biological needs. They've even created what they call cultural exchange programs, to help both species understand each other better. Christak looked out at the sunset over New Geneva, the golden light reflecting off the city's structures. In the distance, he could see the newly constructed Kryvak embassy, a building that incorporated both species' architectural preferences, symbolizing their emerging partnership. "We came to assess them," Christak reflected, "to determine their place in our hierarchy. Instead, they assessed us and found not a master but a potential ally." "Is that disappointment I hear, High Admiral?" Travak asked, a hint of Kryvak humor in his secondary voice. "Revelation," Christak corrected. "For generations, we believed that true strength came from surviving the harshest conditions, that our evolutionary path was superior because our world demanded more of us." He gestured toward a group of human children being given a carefully supervised tour of a Kryvak shuttle, their faces alight with curiosity and wonder. But these humans, they survived and thrived not by evolving thicker armor or stronger limbs, but by thinking differently. They turned their weakness into strength by learning to cooperate, to innovate, to adapt their environment rather than simply enduring it. Secretary Rodriguez approached, having finished her formal duties. "Contemplating the philosophical implications of our meeting, Admiral. Indeed, your species has forced me to reconsider what it means to be strong." Rodriguez smiled. "And yours has reminded us that there are many paths to sentience and civilization. The universe, it seems, rewards diversity of approach." Together, they watched as a human engineer demonstrated a new material to a Kryvak scientist, something that combined earth elements with Kavarian compounds to create a substance stronger than either could produce alone. "Perhaps that is the greatest lesson," Christak said. "True strength emerges not from domination but from combination, the merging of different capabilities toward common purpose." "I'll drink to that," Rodriguez agreed, raising a glass of what humans called champagne. "To unexpected friends and uncharted futures." Christak raised his own specially designed container. "To the day the strongest Deathworld species met humanity, and both became stronger for it." As night fell over New Geneva, lights illuminated the newly established Galactic Cooperation Center, where humans and Kryvak would work together. Already, plans were being developed to revisit the classification of all species, to create a more nuanced understanding of strength and capability that went beyond mere biology. The stars above held new promise, not of conquest or hierarchy, but of partnership and discovery. Humanity had changed the Kryvak, and the Kryvak had changed humanity. Together, they would change the galaxy. Christak knew that many challenges lay ahead. Traditionalists on both sides would resist change. The logistics of integrating such different species would be complex. Cultural misunderstandings would inevitably occur. But for the first time in his long career, High Admiral Christak looked to the future not with the certainty of predetermined order, but with the excitement of unexplored possibility. And that, he reflected, might be the most valuable human trait of all, the ability to see change not as a threat to order, but as an opportunity for growth. As the celebration continued around him, Christak made a personal vow. He would ensure that this new partnership flourished. Not because it maintained the natural hierarchy he had always believed in, but because it challenged him to discover a better one. The Deathworld had met the Garden World, and neither would ever be the same again. High Admiral Christak stared out over the transformed landscape of New Geneva from the newly constructed observation platform of the joint Terran-Kryvak embassy. 2 years had passed since first contact, and the changes were evident everywhere he looked. The embassy itself was a marvel of collaborative architecture, Kryvak's strength and durability combined with human aesthetics and efficiency. The environmental systems allowed both species to move freely throughout most areas, with specialized zones for each species' particular biological needs. Quite a view, isn't it? Dr. Tanaka joined him on the platform, now serving as the chief scientific liaison between Earth and Kavar Prime. Hard to believe this was just an empty field when you first landed. Indeed, Christak agreed. Your species builds quickly, and yours builds to last, she replied. The structural engineering team tells me this building will stand for at least 5 centuries, even with minimal maintenance. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Pip, now officially designated as independent ambassador for the Vulrix Cooperative. The small, fox-like being's status had been one of the first reforms implemented after the Concord. The educational exchange program reports are complete, Pip announced. Neural interface projecting data summaries. The first 300 human students have completed their initial semester on Sci-Fi Prime, and 500 Kryvac scholars have finished their Earth studies. Casualties? Christak inquired, still thinking in Kryvac terms. Tanaka smiled. None, Admiral. Though we did have 2 humans who tried to venture outside their environmental suits to experience Sci-Fi Prime directly. Fortunately, your security protocols prevented what would have been a rather messy diplomatic incident. Extreme sports enthusiasts, Christak guessed, having learned much about this peculiar human subculture. Precisely, we've implemented additional psychological screening for future exchanges. The door slid open again, admitting Secretary Rodriguez and Travac, deep in conversation about the upcoming Galactic Council expansion. The Council, once dominated by Kryvac interests, was being reformed to include representation from all affiliated species, with humanity playing a key role in the restructuring. The voting procedures are nearly finalized, Rodriguez was saying. Proportional representation balanced against ecological contribution metrics should satisfy both traditional hierarchists and progressive factions. The Hive Collective remains skeptical, Travac noted. Their consensus-based decision-making is incompatible with individual voting rights. We're working on an adaptive algorithm that translates collective consciousness into representational weight, Rodriguez replied. Dr. Wong's team believes they've found a workable solution. Christak marveled at how quickly humans adapted to interspecies politics. In just 2 years, they had mastered the complex dynamics of galactic diplomacy that had taken the Kryvac generations to establish. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority communication. The central holographic projector activated, displaying a 3-dimensional image of Kiva Prime's newly elected Grand Administrator, who had replaced the traditional Council Elder in the recent governmental reforms. High Admiral, honored human representatives, the Administrator began. I bring exciting news. The Joint Research Initiative has achieved a breakthrough in atmospheric processing. The technology developed by human environmental scientists, combined with Kryvac biological engineering, has successfully begun to reduce toxicity levels in Sci-Fi Prime's lower atmosphere. This was monumental news. For millennia, the Kryvac had adapted to their harsh world, never imagining it could be changed. Early projections suggest that within 50 years, portions of the surface may become habitable for non-Kryvac species with minimal protective equipment. The Administrator continued, the implications for resource utilization and population distribution are significant. After the communication ended, silence fell over the observation platform as everyone processed the implications. You're terraforming a Deathworld, Christak finally said, his dual voice reflecting disbelief. My ancestors would consider this sacrilege, the crucible that forged our strength being softened. We prefer to think of it as optimization. Dr. Tanaka replied gently. The harshness of Kiva Prime drove your evolution. Yes, but it also limits your potential now. Imagine what your species could achieve if not constantly fighting against your own homeworld. Travac, who had initially shared Christak's traditionalist views, added, the preliminary economic projections support this perspective. Reduced environmental maintenance costs alone would increase productivity by 37% within the first decade. And more importantly, Rodriguez said, it would allow our peoples to truly share worlds, not just diplomatic facilities, genuine cultural exchange rather than isolated enclaves. Christak moved to the edge of the platform, his 4 eyes taking in the bustling activity below. Human and Kryvak scientists exited a laboratory complex together, gesturing animatedly in discussion. A group of Volrix analysts coordinated drone surveillance of wildlife in a nearby preservation area, their work now valued for its own merit rather than as service to the Kryvak. When we first arrived, Kristak reflected, I expected to find primitive beings requiring either conquest or protection. Instead, we found partners who challenged our most fundamental assumptions, and we expected either destroyers or saviors. Rodriguez countered with a smile. Instead, we found colleagues who gave us perspective on our place in the cosmos. The sunset painted the sky in vibrant colors, the light reflecting off the crystalline structures of the new galactic communication array being constructed on the outskirts of the city. The array would establish faster-than-light communication between Earth, Sivar Prime, and 24 other worlds, creating an unprecedented network of interspecies dialogue. The universe, Kristak said thoughtfully, is not what I believed it to be. Few worthwhile things ever are. Dr. Tanaka replied, That's what makes discovery so valuable. As night fell and the stars became visible, Kristak considered how far they had all come from that first awkward meeting. The assessment that was meant to determine humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy had instead transformed the hierarchy itself. And perhaps that was the greatest strength of all, not the ability to dominate or endure, but the capacity to recognize when old systems must give way to new understanding. In the darkness above, a bright point of light moved across the sky, the first joint Terran Kryvak exploration vessel, departing for the uncharted regions beyond the Orion Spur. Aboard were scientists, diplomats, and explorers from both worlds, united in common purpose. To unexpected discoveries, Kristak said, raising a ceremonial chalice in the traditional Kryvak gesture, and to the wisdom to recognize them when they appear. Rodriguez completed the now familiar exchange. Together, representatives of the strongest Deathworld species and humanity watched as the ship carried their combined legacy toward distant stars, neither conquering nor submitting, but exploring as equals. And that, Kristak reflected, was a strength no Deathworld could have taught alone.